verbena are still giving us a spectacular display even at the end of September. The colour and continuity of flower that we've had on these during the time they've been planted here since June's been incredible, really turning into a fantastic value plant. What's starting to look a little bit end of season is some of these geraniums, which have really enjoyed their time out here in the sunshine and frost-free growing during the summer months. This one got a real knockback earlier in the season when I broke its pot with the lawnmower. It'd been positioned really badly and cracked right through. Subsequently, it wasn't planted out too quickly into the new pot and has dried out a little. It's time you start thinking about bringing some of these gently back into the conservatory, because the heat that they'll get from these sunny afternoons in September really should reinvigorate some of the flower bud production on them, particularly if you combine it with a feed. And feeding really does make all the difference. Just look at this. Thank you, Laura. And she's gone in the sun. There we go, better. Beautiful, heavy flower production from these 3 plants of geranium in this large planter. And it just goes to show you, same position, same conditions, same water, but with the addition of fresh compost earlier in the season and plenty of food, just how well they can do. But let's go and have a look in the conservatory, because we've not shown you that this year, and there's quite a bit of work to be done in there, ready for this lot to come back in for the winter season. Well, this conservatory on the side of the old Georgian farmhouse has been here probably since Victorian times. It's a lovely old thing. South facing, not particularly well sealed at the roof junction with the walls, so it's well ventilated as well. So although it gets baked in here, particularly on that end wall, never gets too hot the way some modern better insulated or sealed conservatories do, and that makes it ideal for growing these geraniums, which do us proud here over the summer months. But they are getting a little tired in their compost pots, and gradually what we're doing is repotting these into larger 6-inch pots and reconditioning all the compost with fresh material to try and reinvigorate the plants. And the results really do pay dividends if you do that. Geraniums and pelargoniums particularly make beautiful old mature plants. Some have better structure and forms than others. There's a few varieties I struggle with. This pink one in front of us tends to get very, very leggy, and some of them do have a natural habit to grow probably to 3 or 4 feet if you give them big enough pots. There's more examples of that in front of me. They tend to be problematic because to cut those back or cut them down, you're cutting out most of the flowering growth, and where the buds are forming, as you can see, almost invariably at the tip of long shoots, which have lost most of their leaf at the base towards where you would naturally be cutting these down. But you've just got to be brutal with them every few years, otherwise they become very leggy, very unruly, and very difficult to actually position and care for. This is my all-time favourite geranium because of its compact nature and florid flower production. It's an absolute cracker. It's the one we showed you outside, and this variety is called Sophie Dark Red. It's a cracking variety to grow, and if I was to recommend a single variety for you to start with into growing geraniums, then this would be the one. It forms these vigorous plants, large semi-double heads of flower which are held really nicely just above the foliage, and it's a reliable and vigorous flower throughout the season. This one starts as early as May, sometimes earlier if we've got a bit of early sunshine. It will be putting bud up before that, and it will be flowering right the way through to the end of October, even into November, with the figure that you see here in front of you. We feed it regularly with a normal tomato food that we mix as per manufacturer's instructions in the water that we feed, both from the top and from the base. I do tend to give these a good drenching from the top because they're in such a warm environment over the summer months. That really does tend to do them better than letting them just pull it up from the base. And it's suitable for growing outside over a good summer, as you saw in those pots earlier, but it does really well in this position in this conservatory. We've got 2 rows of them there. We do rotate them between the top row and the bottom row, and that tends to keep the vigour and growth nice and compact, which is exactly what you want in a pot-grown geranium, with plenty of flower held so nicely above it. We do grow other varieties in here. We've got some trailing ivy leaf geraniums. They do cause us more management problems. They are prone to green fly and white fly, occasionally need a little bit of spraying, and they're much later into blossom and flower in the season. The pelargoniums we struggle with, to be honest. They tend to be more prone to drought and drying out of the compost, and then they come back far more slow. It's a much less vigorous plant than a species geranium such as the one we've just shown you, but it will make a very good structural long-lived plant. And in a beautiful terracotta pot, then one of these in full flower is really a thing of wonder. Shocking Orange used to be my favourite variety. They're getting a little old now. The one on the right really is looking not very happy at all, and I think that's probably because it's just not had the attention they would normally get in this position over this summer. We've been distracted with so many things: builders, new gardens, commissioning kitchens, you name it. I've had a bit of distraction, and the conservatory really's had to be a bit on the back burner really this year. We've done very little in here apart from repot some of these, and now we're looking at how we can create a little bit of extra space in here for all those new ones that we've purchased over the season, and to bring those in and make sure that they overwinter and give us this degree of flower next season. So we will be squeezing them up a little bit, starting to dry off with some of the watering over the next couple of weeks. We don't want these to get mildew and rot as we start getting some cold nights in here, and this is an unheated conservatory, so the temperature really reflects what's going on in the outside environment, and without too much care these should overwinter quite adequately in here and be back in flower by next May. But we will see how we go with these, because I do have quite a few new plants that we've bought for planters and tubs that I'm hoping to be able to retain. We're thinking we were going to have a polytunnel in place by this time of year this year, and that would take a little bit of the pressure off this conservatory, but it hasn't happened. I'm being a bit slow deciding on the design and size, and whether I want a side ventilated or fully polythene end door version, so decisions still to be taken on that at the moment. We'll see what happens, but this year everything's going to have to squeeze back in here, including the citrus fruits, so interesting next couple of weeks ahead.